What's going on, everybody, and welcome in to the first edition of WARR Media's Open Run. My name is Gavriel Wilkins. I be him, and I'm joined with my fellow co-host and partner in crime, the one and only Josh Hicks. How you doing, man? I know you've been out there in the soil covering, Bulls preseason action, the digs and everything, man. How's life been? It's been a minute.
Well, it's definitely, man. Everything is looking pretty bright on the other side when it comes to that. But I'm just glad to be on this show with you. Obviously, new beginnings with the show and the production side of things. So I'm ready to see how really get this thing going and get this thing jumping for the season, man. I'm excited.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it's definitely gonna be a fun season to watch, and we looking forward to a lot of it and what the future holds. And like I said, this first ever edition of Open Run, and we're gonna kick it off, talking about the hometown team, the Chicago Bulls. Had a great preseason, finished with a 3-1 record, knocking off the Denver Nuggets, beat Toronto Raptors, and the Milwaukee Bucks, while averaging 124.5 points per game as a unit and earning all three wins by double digits, all the while shooting over 50% from the field as a team in the process. Javonte Green finished with 15 points through the first 4 dress rehearsals of the year, shot over 50% from the field, as well as over 60% from downtown, while DeMar DeRozan posted over 21 points a game, shooting over 55% from the field, while averaging nearly 5 assists per contest. Like I said, Josh, I know that you was out there. I know that you also had the pleasure of talking with Casey Johnson, Bulls insider of NBC Sports Chicago, about this season and expectations and everything that transpired during the offseason with moves and so forth, and the new additions such as Goran Dragic, Andre Drummond, and so forth. What are the 3 things that you took away from this preseason that stood out to you the most and watching the Bulls post a 3-1 record and playing some stellar basketball?
I think the first thing for me is obviously the big news in the Chicago right now with Patrick Williams. Everybody thought for the most part Patrick Williams was going to be a lock-in. He's going to you just fill in the slot and he's a guaranteed starting for this team. But that's not the case. And Billy Donovan has made it aware that he's still evaluating what's the best role for Patrick Williams to play right now. And it does seem like the best role for him to play is coming off the bench. The coach from Billy Donovan and his staff, but it is a call that can actually, in a lot of ways down the run, maybe benefit Patrick Williams. Not just learning the game from how to be aggressive per se when he does get the ball, but aggressive in other areas, which is something that Billy Donovan really wanted to highlight and emphasis with Patrick Williams, whether it's running the floor hard, whether it's understanding, building up your IQ of basketball, whether it's setting simple screens or cuts, anything that can help the team benefit in other ways, which are tangible assets that Patrick Williams does bring to the table. Billy Donovan wants to exploit that. And one of the only ways he really can do it, if you really think about it, especially when it comes to the offensive end and what we desire of Patrick Williams on the offensive end, really needs to come in the second unit when you have, because it's hard to do that when you have DeMar DeRozan, Nicola Vouchers, and Zach LaVine on the court at the same time, who are both offensive scorers and go-getters. So I think he understands that, the coaching staff understands that, and they're making it known that, yeah, we know that he can do what he can do. I mean, obviously wanted to do it on this magnitude, but don't get fooled by the fact that he's the fourth pick in this draft class. That doesn't matter to them. It's all about fit and how he fits with this team and the role that he plays. And they know that right now it's in the second unit. At least that's what it seems as of right now, because the lineup hasn't been official yet from a starting game perspective on Wednesday. But the other story, or the flip side to that story, is Javonte Green. That's the second point for me that really stood out. Javonte working on that jump shot. He's been in the gym. He told me this past offseason that, he wanted to work on his offensive game, including that jump shot with the Bulls coaching staff, because he wanted to make sure that he could, alleviate some of the load and pressure off of our big three. And you can see in a lot of ways, especially with this, that Billy Donovan's mentioned with this 5-man out offense, he fits that offense very well, especially if he can continuously knock down that 3-point shot with a higher volume. That's something that the Bulls need. And not to mention, he's also big in moving and great in moving without the ball, which is something that Billy Donovan needs when you have those three guys on the court at the same time, especially since he's a person that doesn't necessarily need the ball every possession of the floor. So he fits the role that the Bulls are currently in need of right now. And he's made it very known and pretty known in every game he's played within the preseason that's his job to have. He outperformed Patrick Williams in that role. Now, obviously, Javonte, he's a team guy. Patrick Williams is a team guy. And there's no beef when it comes to, getting those starting jobs and those starting roles. And as long as they win, they want to win. And what my eyes have seen, Javonte got that starting job, no matter what. At the end of the day, that's Javonte's job. And Patrick Williams is coming off the bench, and hopefully Patrick Williams coming off that bench will alleviate a lot of stress or pressure that he may be dealing with to play and just give him the confidence to just flow within this game and maybe dominate in ways that he wouldn't be able to in the first unit with playing along those stars that he's playing around with. But the third point for me that really was like the icing on the cake is the dynamic between Goran Dragic, Patrick Williams, and the starting point guard of this team, Ayo Dosunmu. Because Ayo was automatically a guaranteed slot for the starting point guard role. It was pretty much a given. And he's shown he's shown that he's putting the work in the offseason as well. He's gained weight. His jump shot looks a lot smoother. He's shooting the ball with confidence, without hesitation. And, he's improved his game. But he's a young point guard that still needs to learn in a lot of ways how to flow within an offense and how to officiate and be a floor general in that realm. And that's where you got Goran Dragic. In a lot of ways, that's part of why you got Goran Dragic. He knows how to run that offense. He knows how to be effective within the offense. And he knows how to not only work with veteran players, but young players as well. So he knows what it means to help develop young talent along the way, especially since he had the experience of being a backup point guard to NBA legend Steve Nash, who's pretty much going to be a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best point guards ever to play the game. So Goran Dragic told me that he's excited to be able to play with Ayo and to be able to teach him all those things, especially when it comes to pick and roll play. He's very excited about this. We obviously know from a guard perspective, Goran Dragic and Ayo, they're going to be together in a lot of different ways. They're going to be all around each other. But if you move Patrick Williams to the second unit, he's going to be playing a lot more with Goran Dragic. And Goran Dragic has made it known to me that, that he's continuously working with Patrick Williams in screen and roll situations and helping him get to his spot so that way he can excel when they're on the floor together. And Patrick Williams told me he loves to pick Goran Dragic's brain, not just because of his veteran leadership on the court, but the fact that he knows how to handle veterans and young players. So I think that triangle dynamic is very underestimated when you talk about the roles that Goran Dragic, Ayo Dosunmu, and Patrick Williams will eventually be playing, because that's going to be one of the main trios in a lot of ways, from not just from starting, but from a bench perspective. That's going to really keep this team afloat in a lot of ways, especially with the absence of Lonzo Ball from a point guard perspective.
Yeah, I know that you had the pleasure of talking with Patrick Williams about, Goran Dragic and his mentorship and helping him learn how to navigate through the pick and roll and whatnot like that. That was real good content that you had, and I had the pleasure of seeing. For me, the three takeaways that I took from the preseason was the player Javonte Green, first and foremost. As you alluded to, I think that he has cemented himself as a starting power forward for the Bulls this season. You talked about how, he had made it clear with you that he had been working this all season on his three-point shot, making sure that he was knocking it down consistently. I kind of got a chance to see that firsthand for myself in the middle of last season, getting a lot of games early and watching players warm up. And Javonte was always one of the first guys in the building. He was always working extensively on his shot. And I could tell that he was trying to put that work in to take his three-point shot to the next level, to be that safety valve that DeRozan and Levine need when they're getting double teamed, penetrating and attacking the paint, and they got to kick it out to a shooter. I've been very impressed with his play. I thought that he's always been a solid player off the ball, making things go and happen, even though I do worry about how his size may factor in when you go up against longer teams with size, such as Milwaukee and Philadelphia on the front line. I think right now he's proven to be their best option. And until Patrick Williams gets more comfortable playing alongside of DeRozan and Levine, I do believe that we will more than likely see him on the bench because with that second unit, he can at least find a way to help ignite it. And he's the type of guy I think he needs the ball in his hands a lot more in order to be effective and more successful. And he's also used to playing on the bench, coming off the bench rather, because as we know, when he came out of Florida State, he was a sixth man on that team under Leonard Hamilton. So right. I think at this point, Javonte Green has cemented his spot at the starting four for the Bulls, and I just was very impressed with his growth. And he was making things happen not only off the ball, but even on the ball. Like I remember he attacked off the dribble a couple of times against Toronto, going down a slam dunk, going in for a layup against contested defenders and whatnot. I really like to see what he showcased. And I think maybe playing in the Pro-Am this summer at the Shot League kind of helped him with that. The second guy that stood out to me was Nicola Vouchers. You could tell that this is a big time year for him. He's seeking to, secure that bag. He's not seeking to be that stationary guy that we knew him to be last year, where he was just shooting threes more often than not. He was getting things done on the low block. He was making things happen with his face-up game. Another thing that really impressed me too, and he's always had this skill, but I think he showcased it a lot more preseason, was his passing ability. I think he's very motivated, and I think he's eager to really show his worth and is a key contributor on this ball, because I really believe, in spite of DeRozan and Levine's presence as the 1-2 punch, that, Vucevic is the biggest X factor on the ball club, besides Patrick Williams. The last but not least was Ayo Dosunmu, a guy who I think has taken the next step, not only offensively, finding his shot, finding more confidence in his shot, being more willing to take shots when they're there, not seeking to be apprehensive on the floor, and also growing defensively, calling out sets, talking more, getting in the guy's chest a little bit more. I was very impressed with the way he played. And in my opinion, while, he may have been penciled in as a starting point guard, he earned that job. And I think that's a good decision for the Bulls moving forward. Without Lonzo Ball, who's still nursing, from left knee surgery and recovering from that torn meniscus that he suffered late last year. Those were the three things that really, stood out to me the most. And I'm interested to see just how Dosunmu fares in year 2 with this Bulls roster as he seeks to continue to build chemistry with them. He sounds a lot more confident in the interviews that I've heard, and he's playing more confident when I've watched him thus far through the season. As we know, it all tips off this Wednesday night in Miami against the Eastern Conference runner-up from last year, the Miami Heat. But my next question for you is with season predictions. 538, as we know, they released their predictions about a week ago, and they projected the Bulls to finish with a 35-47 record, despite winning 46 games last season and making it to the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. What are your overall expectations going into the season with a Bulls squad that'll be going in without point guard Lonzo Ball, who we know is still nursing from knee injury, and after recently going through surgery for the second time in the last 8 months?
I struggled a little bit with this, but I think at the end of the day, I don't have a specific record that they don't have at this present moment. But I do believe they'll probably finish between that 7 to 8 seed, and has a good chance of being in the play-in tournament. Just because, as much as the Bulls have improved with the two additional veterans that can really help off that second unit, I think they'll better perform this year because they have a chance to keep it afloat. When Lonzo Ball went out for the rest of the season, it took a dive. They took a huge dive outside of that first unit, and they couldn't sustain and maintain what the first half of the year was bringing from Lonzo Ball. I think when you brought in Goran Dragic, you brought in Andre Drummond, you try to address areas that can help prevent some of that drop off. Where if you do drop off, it's not too bad. So I think they're going to be okay in that department, but then it got better. Every team you can pretty much think of in the Eastern Conference has improved in some way, shape, or form, including the upper teams when it comes to reaching for that championship status level. So I think they're eventually going to finish 8th. They'll be part of the play-in tournament. Will not be surprised if they get to the first round. But after that, there's question marks because if the roster maintains the way that it is, especially if you don't get Lonzo Ball coming back, I don't see the Bulls going much further than what they did last year at all. And then honestly, they might even they might be losing may have an earlier exits than they projected last season.
To me, this is a team that, you know, if things go well, they could be right back where they were last year. They could be a 5th or 6th seed. If things, you know, get a little bit bumpy, and as you said, is a much improved Eastern Conference with teams such as Philly getting better with the additions of PJ Tucker and DeAnthony Melton, alongside of Montrezl Harrell, and, you know, rejuvenated James Harden. You know, Joel Embiid is going to be back. You know, that's a top 5 player. Miami, you know, added to their roster as well, bringing back majority of their core. I see this team really being on the verge of the play-in. I see this being a team that does finish anywhere between 7 through 10. And I would say that they finish as a 7th seed, where they're going to have to earn the right to play in the playoffs. They're going to have to play somebody in order to get in. And the reason why I say that is because without Lonzo Ball, it's going to impact their ability to play at a fast pace. And even though Ayo, I think, can be a pace setter for this Bulls team, he's still learning, still trying to grow and navigate and find his way in the league. And I think that's going to take some time. I also believe that, you know, I still have a lot of question marks in regards to Billy Donovan as well. You know, like he's going to have to open up his playbook and so forth a lot more to get guys involved. Like you got Patrick Williams, and now you're moving him to the bench. But with that being said, he's going to have to find a way to produce. And you're going to have to put him in the best position to succeed. And while I do believe in Patrick Williams still, I'm not, you know, on the fence about him yet at this point. I do believe that at some point his skill will translate and showcase well to the fans. At some point in time, you know, you just got to show and prove. And I really believe that the Bulls are in a place where, due to the state of the Eastern Conference, if they don't get off to a hot start similar to what they did last year, it's going to be very tough to get one of those top 6 seeds. And in the Eastern Conference, with a revamped New York Knicks squad who acquired Jalen Brunson, a revamped Detroit Pistons squad with the newcomer, Jaden Ivey, the rookie guard, pairing up and joining forces with Cade Cunningham and Sadiq Bey and Jalen Duran, who they also acquired in the draft. This Eastern Conference is not going to be no punk. And that's not even including Cleveland, who, you know, acquired Donovan Mitchell in a blockbuster trade late this summer to link up with Darius Garland in that backcourt over there, alongside of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, the 2 big men that's going to make sure to anchor the paint and that back line of the defense. So I see them being a 7th or 8th seed at best. You know, this it will come down to beating the elite teams. And I think opening night is going to be the Bulls' biggest test, because that was a team in the Miami Heat who they were 0-4 against in the regular season last year. So you going to Miami behind enemy lines, you know, those are the games that you got to take care of if you want to avoid being in that play-in round, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, the Bulls, it's going to be a proven year for them. They got to prove themselves. Show that last year wasn't a fluke of them getting to the playoffs. And honestly, they exceeded expectations from last year, from a way they played and developed over throughout the whole season. But you made the move that you made. You've made it known that you're not trading Patrick Williams or Kobe White at the present moment, and you followed through on your promise on bringing the core back, which you did. You got Zach LaVine now, who signed his max contract deal. He's the face of the franchise. You've answered that. You've actually done what you wanted to do. Now it's about time of putting your money where your mouth is and see what they're going to actually perform it on the floor. And we'll see how. And this is a year for them where we'll see how it really goes. Especially considering, I think Billy Donovan, this is his 3rd year now, and that contract's coming up real soon after next year.
Yep.
So you need to make sure that you got all your ducks in order in a row, so that way there's no question you're coming back. I do believe vibes from the front office that, you know, Billy is on the hot seat after this season if they don't do well. But, you know, we have a right to question the growth of this team, considering that he has a history of having players do well and great in the regular season, but when it comes to playoff basketball, that skill tips, and they don't go and advance in ways that, quite frankly, they could have.
Yeah, I totally agree. But earlier this week, Josh had the pleasure of sitting down with a Bulls insider, longtime Bulls insider, who's currently covering the team with NBC Sports Chicago, been doing so for over 20 plus years now, the one and only KC Johnson, to talk about season expectations for the Bulls, to talk about the offseason moves that they made. And where do they go from here going into the 2022-2023 season? The Bulls look to make it to back-to-back playoff runs under Billy Donovan, who's in his third year as the Bulls head coach. Check that out.
Y'all know what time it is. It is the one and only Open Run, first edition. And we have a very special guest on this go-around. We got the guy that is like literally the know-all, the genius of everything Bulls information. You see him on TV. He gives his reports on TV. He gives his reports on the Bulls Talk podcast. He's just that guy. I mean, he's just that guy in the industry, and most specifically in all things Bulls conversation and Bulls talk. I'm proud and glad to have KC Johnson, Bulls insider for NBC Sports Chicago, as the first time running on the show. How you doing, man? I mean, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
No problem, man. No problem. I'm excited to get this Bulls talk going because, the Bulls, they made a little bit of noise this offseason when you're talking about bringing in guys like Goran Dragic and Andre Drummond. And I think the biggest noise per se is really signing your max player in Zach LaVine, giving him over $200 million, which is something that's never been done in the Bulls history. I mean, talking about, payroll and what it means to, go big or go home. But at the same time, Bulls Media Day has come to pass. They've now officially finished their preseason. They start their first game on Wednesday, the 19th in Miami against a really tough, Jimmy Butler-led team in Miami. Casey, before we jump to the season per se, I would like to get your thoughts as far as what was your original thoughts when you first heard the signings of Goran Dragic, Andre Drummond, and drafting Dalen Terry and leading up to the preseason? What was your first reactions when you heard all the moves that the Bulls were making?
I think they're pretty consistent with how this management team has operated. If you look at their first draft pick in Patrick Williams, that was obviously a pick based on upside. I would say that Dalen Terry fits into that same basket. And then if you look at the signings of Goran Dragic and Andre Drummond, they align with the signing of, say, like a Garrett Temple, just solid, rotational veterans that can add experience and also try to contribute still on the court, add leadership, that kind of stuff, add toughness. So to me, they were right in line, and they more to the point, they also fell in line with the theme that we've been hearing since February, obviously, the old continuity word, because it was just working the margins to kind of supplement what they already have. And as you mentioned, the biggest one is, re-signing Zach LaVine. I mean, that's not a slam dunk. I mean, you've got to pony up to keep your own, and they certainly did that.
So obviously now with these pieces coming together, we've had our first 4 games of what that could potentially look like. What was the thing? What stood out to you the most when you watched those preseason games? Like, what caught your eye the most?
No, a few things. I mean, the biggest one to me, well, I shouldn't say, probably the biggest one because it's the most important one to me is just Vucevic and how comfortable he looked and just how they kind of tried to obviously utilize him in different situations than last season, where he largely was more based on the perimeter. It's clear they're, still going to have that as part of the repertoire, but they're going to move him around. And Billy Donovan, the catchphrase he's been using is they want more offensive randomness. He felt they got a little stagnant and predictable when they suffered the injuries and when Lonzo Ball went down, and they're going to be without Lonzo for the foreseeable future. So they've got to find different ways to play, and you can't just have it all be isolation based with Zach and DeMar. So that was a big one. I would say the intriguing, unexpected battle at power forward stood out to me, because I don't think anybody would have predicted that Patrick Williams might be coming off the bench to start year 3, which is obviously still undetermined, but it's certainly in play. And then the other one would be just I would assume I'm not sure that's even like a surprise or anything, but just him kind of just claiming that starting point guard spot and really not missing a beat. I mean, he's so unfazed by everything. It's very consistent with how he played his rookie season.
Out of those 3 points, let's go with the Ayo direction first, because I mean, personally, for me, when you bring in a guy like Goran Dragic, I would think, yeah, he might start because of the experience. He knows how to run an offense, what he brings to the table, and bring it from a consistency perspective to keep things, on par. And you can bring Ayo in off the bench, and even though he may come off the bench, he can still be finishing games. I was thinking maybe that route, but Ayo has come into this from the offseason. He's bigger, and you can tell he's worked on his jump shot where he's not hesitating a lot. He's actually shooting the ball more with confidence from anywhere on the floor. And aside from the fact that he's a Chicago guy, so he got that toughness and that chip on his shoulder, it just seems like he is much more commanding on the floor now that he is playing more into that role. And Billy made it seem like it was pretty much like a lock-in. I don't know. I wouldn't know if it was a lock-in per se for him to be point guard, but do you think it was going to be that obvious that he was going to take that next leap?
I mean, it certainly was a question. You didn't also mention Caruso, who I do think will be closing games. He'll be me closing games over Ayo. I mean, I predicted on our own podcast that, I mean, my informed guess was it was going to be Ayo, just because I thought that they're going to really try to preserve Dragic and really manage his minutes, particularly coming off of Eurobasket. I was told when Dragic signed, not only was he a depth signing, but he's also I was told it was more for the 16 game season than the 82 game season. So, they're clearly targeting him. I mean, he's going to have a role in the regular season, but he's going to be here for the playoffs as well. So, Ayo to me always made the most sense. I just think Caruso is so good coming off the bench with that energy and then closing games. And if he's starting games, he has a tendency to maybe sometimes get in foul trouble and things like that. So, but to your point, Josh, the way that his floor command has grown, that to me is very noticeable, and it's something that Billy Donovan and Caruso have both spoken about, is just how they've tried to help him in that regard. And work. I mean, as good as he played his rookie year, there are times where he's not always used to running an offense. He has played both on the ball and off the ball throughout his career, and he's also a rookie, so he would defer at times. But I think, just as you mentioned, like his floor general leadership has really stood out to me in this preseason. And kudos to him. The guy just doesn't seem to be fazed by very much.
And you mentioned how Caruso and Billy Donovan have emphasized how they both helped Ayo to take that next leap and being that point guard. I'm really intrigued by how the dynamic between Goran Dragic and Ayo works, because even in the last preseason game, there was a few moments in the game where Ayo and Goran Dragic were playing on the court at the same time. And I know Billy Donovan has been very outspoken about experimenting with lineups and seeing what chemistry and what works and what doesn't. But considering Ayo and Goran Dragic on the court at the same time, I'm intrigued to hear your viewpoint. What is that chemistry like potentially, if within those two players, and how much of an importance is that of Goran Dragic teaching him and bringing what he's learned over his experience? I think it's 16 years in the league, to help Ayo take the next step in becoming a really solid, versatile point guard.
Yeah, even if it doesn't happen on the court as much, it can happen in film sessions and in practice settings and in locker room settings and stuff. And so that'll be important. Look, Caruso isn't as old or as experienced as Dragic, but he's very on point with that kind of leadership as well. So you've got two really good mentors, and then we also have to point to the coaching staff. I mean, we've got a Hall of Fame point guard legend in the building in Mo Cheeks. Yep. So Ayo's got plenty of avenues with which to learn from, and by all accounts, he's quite the sponge and very inquisitive by nature. He asks a lot of questions, so you never have to worry about Ayo. I always say, like, whatever his ceiling is, he's going to hit it, maybe even go past it, but you're not going to have to worry about him reaching his potential, because he's going to put the work in. But I don't think Dragic, this is just me, I don't think Dragic and I are going to play together a lot. It's pretty clear to me in the preseason that Billy is pretty locked into using these separate 5-man units, and Ayo's in the the first unit and Dragic is in that second unit. And that's another new wrinkle this season, because as we know, last season DeMar got staggered so much and would kind of lead that second unit more often than not. And this year, at least right now, it looks like Billy's going to go in with two separate five-man units. That obviously can change if he doesn't like the look, or it's an experimentation thing, or there's injuries or what have you. But at least through the preseason, that was his kind of working model, and we'll see how that moves into the regular season.
Well, one of the working models that has been taking place in the preseason is, like, as you mentioned before, this power forward battle between Patrick Williams and Javonte Green. Javonte has told me over this past offseason that he wanted to work on his game, and he planned on working with the coaching staff to improve his shooting, because he wanted to take that load off of Zach LaVine, Vooch and DeMar, and help make things easier for them. He's been hitting that three-point shot pretty consistently throughout this preseason. And in a lot of ways, to me, really helped that offense flow when it talks about Billy Donovan's ideal, ball movement perspective with the 5-out lineup. Obviously, we know Patrick Williams has been vocal about, he's a team guy and he's doing everything to make it work. But how much of a surprise is it really Javonte taking that extra step to take that position, or at least the lead it looks like on the outside looking in? Or is it just Patrick Williams' slow maturation process that doesn't always, take that jump like we maybe would want him to?
Well, that's probably a combination of all those factors. I mean, let's start with where you started, because you caught up with Javonte a couple of times over the summer. I mean, you got to give credit to him. He did stay around here and put the work in. He actually shot a very good percentage last year as well. The difference to me is, he's now not hesitating to take that shot, so his volume might go up. I mean, I think he was at 35% from three last year, which isn't bad, but he's obviously low volume. And I'm not saying he needs to start jacking threes, because he's clearly a third or fourth option. But just the fact that if you get an open shot and you don't hesitate it'll obviously help prevent defenses from doing what they did so much last year, where they're just, sagging off the other guys and clearly loading up on Zach and DeMar. This is obviously after Lonzo went out. So you got to start there. All credit to Javonte. He stayed and put the work in, and certainly looks like he has improved that area of his game. The Patrick thing, it's almost tiring at this point, because it's the same theme over and over and over. I will say, I don't know what Billy's going to do, to start the season, but the fact that he's even considering it is surprising. But I will say, you got to give Billy some credit on that, because let's just hypothetically play it out and say that's the way he goes. Javonte starts and Patrick comes off the bench. Maybe that's, the jumpstart Patrick needs, not even in a motivational way, just in a usage way, because he has talked about, playing alongside Zach and DeMar and Vooch. It almost plays negatively into Pat's personality, which is to be deferential by nature. And if you're in that first unit where you look around and you don't have, three guys who need to eat offensively, maybe he just by nature gets more aggressive. So it could ultimately be a better thing for the team. I will say this, cliche alert sometimes, but in this case, it's spot on. Like Billy Donovan, Javonte Green, and Patrick Williams, all those guys, all three of them, all they care about is what's best for the team. So they'll arrive at that conclusion, and we'll see how it plays out. And it can change. I mean, however they start in Miami might not be how it starts, 3 weeks from now. But it is. All that said, all that babbling aside, it is pretty amazing that we're here, because I would not have predicted this one in a million years.
Right. And I wouldn't have either. But since we are in this position, we both know that, behind the scenes, there may be some discussion as far as the narrative. Are we pushing Patrick too hard? Or do we have high expectations for Patrick Williams because of the fact that he is the top 4 pick of his class? Do you feel that way? Do you feel that there's an unforced narrative being pushed on him with the expectations of him excelling at a level that is equivalent or equates to being the number 4 draft pick of his class?
Well, it's I don't know. It's a tough question. I will say that he didn't start for his college team in his one season, right? So he came off the bench there. So I mean, he is an upside potential pick. You've got to get past the draft position. I've been guilty of it. I'm not like tisking people here. I mean, I've been guilty of it too, saying he's a 4th overall pick, he's got to play, but you got to get past that. First of all, if you look back at it historically, it's probably not going to be a very good draft. Yeah, so there's that. And then, he's a young player who didn't start in his 1 season in college. So I think we now just have to kind of refocus, recenter, and just see, what he can do this season. This is obviously an important season for him. I'm old enough to remember a 4th overall pick. This is way before anyone's time connected to this podcast, named Marcus Pfizer back in the Tim Floyd era, man. And that was another bad draft. And everyone, I remember doing this 20 years ago. When's Pfizer going to develop? When's Pfizer going to develop? And he had some flashes just like Patrick had. He had a 30-20 game one time. But he obviously never quite probably lived up to the billing. But look, that comes with the territory when you're a high lottery pick. So these guys get paid a good amount of money, and to have expectations is because you believe in that player. So I think expectations are fair. But I think all of us, myself included, because I do it at times, need to get past the 4th overall pick thing and just focus on what he can do as a player.
Well, it seems very intriguing that you mentioned that point, because I want to apply that concept to the guy that literally is setting his value in the league by being the first Bulls max player in league history, and Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine obviously is now the solidified face of the franchise and the leader of this team. And we know what he's capable of doing. He's a 3-level scorer, 2-time All-Star, averaging over 25 points a game, and honestly one of the most efficient scorers in the league, not to mention his athleticism. But for me, I want to see him take that next leap in being a playmaker, where he's not always scoring the ball, but he's creating more opportunities for others. And I think that's one of the major components that bring him DeMar DeRozan into Chicago, because he had to learn how to do that in San Antonio. And he averaged 7-8 assists a game as their point guard. What do you expect, or what would you like to see out of Zach LaVine now that he has solidified his contract, now that he is officially the face of the franchise and solidified himself as an all-star and top tier talent in this league? What do you expect? What would you like to see him do in taking this game to the next level for this season?
Well, decision-making is part of it. I do think he's grown in that department. But look, Billy's talked about this offense kind of being predicated on read and react. So it's not going to be as isolation heavy. It's not going to be Zach holding the ball, waiting for a ball screen. I mean, that'll happen occasionally, but in an ideal Billy world, it's going to be more ball and player movement, read and react. So his decision-making's got to be on point. It was not on point in the preseason. I don't put too much stock into that because he was clearly working his way into game shape, but I think he averaged over 3 turnovers in like 22 minutes in the preseason. He looked pretty sloppy and rusty with the ball. So that's got to be on point. And then the other thing is just, you hear with Zach, you want to see him become more of a 2-way player. And I do think he was on that path from, the momentum he gained at the Olympics in Tokyo to the first half of last season before the knee started giving him a little bit of trouble. I did see a lot of growth, more in his off-ball defense. I think on-ball, he's always been, solid to slightly above average. But I think off-ball, he was probably a little bit better in the first half of last season. So you'd like to see him get back to that. But I mean, every time people count this guy out and say he's reached his ceiling or, he's a flawed player, he's this or that, he kind of keeps coming at you. I mean, he does put the work in. His care factor is high. So we'll see what he has in store this season. I mean, all NBA should be in his future if he keeps on this path and really winning, obviously. I mean, that's what he talks about. And that kind of comes with the territory with the max players. You got to start leading your team to some playoff victories as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously the Bulls are making it known that you got to get back to the playoffs and go deeper into the playoffs, which is what Billy Donovan has often talked about as a recent. But in order to do that, you also, for me, I think you got to be bold. If something's not working, you got to shift. And I'm not talking just from coaching, but front office as well. There's always been that talk about, are the Bulls front office really going to be that aggressive and doing whatever it takes to take things to the next level? Arturas made it known, I believe, in the first preseason game against the Pelicans that they got the green light now to be able to make the moves that they need to make, money or not, in order to, get this Bulls team moving forward. Do you really believe that they will literally take that to the serious levels based on how this Bulls team perform, even leading up to the trade deadline. Do you think this is going to be the same roster we're going to see now versus what it could be at trade deadline or post trade deadline?
I mean, I believe management when they say they want to see this group together. And look, Lonzo Ball is not going to be playing until what, January. I mean, I'm
Right.
just throwing this. I mean, I'm throwing out an informed speculation. I mean, so I do think you're going to see this team get a chance to finish the season. That's assuming Lonzo gets health. Now, let's say that things go off the rails and you get to February and they're not where they want to be. Then maybe some new philosophy takes hold or some new options are considered. But if Lonzo comes back and they're in the mix in the East playoff race and Lonzo comes back healthy and starts contributing, I personally do think you will see this team play out this season, because that's what management's vision has been. And they are now drawing some criticism or some questions, I guess, more fair than criticism. Should they do more? Should they do more? They were really aggressive in flipping this roster, and what they're thinking is, I mean, they've said this publicly, I'm not breaking any news here, is, that vision was playing out the way they envisioned it with the number one seed in the East through the first half of last season. I don't personally think that they were the best team in the East, but I do think if they'd stayed healthy, I think they would have been a very tough out in the playoffs. They were a very easy out in the playoffs, and they had obviously a very poor finish to the regular season. So management's defense is that their vision was working, and they want to see that again, which is why they've held the continuity theme and now just work the margins to improve the roster with Drummond and Dragic. So again, if things get crazy and go south, maybe things change by February. But if they're in the hunt and Lonzo comes back healthy, I think you're going to see this team finish the season.
Now, so as we go through this season, this is going to be Billy Donovan's third year. So, which means after this year, I believe he has one more year left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken. If the Bulls this season do not do better than what they did this past year, is it time to put Billy Donovan on a hot seat? Is it time to have that question where you got to start the question: can Billy Donovan really get this team over the hump?
Well, it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what Arturas and Mark Eversley think. And I can tell you that those two guys have a strong belief and deep connection to Billy Donovan. I know for a fact that Arturas thinks the world of him and values their partnership. So I think you're going to be talking probably more extension is likely than hot seat is likely. Now, again, this is all hypothetical and speculative. I mean, if they're 20 games under 500 at the All-Star break, maybe we're having a different conversation, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So we'll see how it plays out. But I can just tell you that as we sit here taping this, the partnership between the coaching staff and management is very, very solid and professional and harmonious.
Okay, well, it's nice to see. It's nice to have that harmonious component in Chicago. It's been a while since we had that, so I can definitely give you that component of things. But just two quick questions, real quick. Obviously, we talked a lot about this within this segment, but have not mentioned enough about Lonzo Ball. Obviously, he's had his surgery, and they said that they'll look at him, reevaluate him per se with another 4 to 6 weeks. What have you heard from his camp, and from the Bulls in general that, from a progress perspective with his knee? And do you think he really will be coming back sooner, like before All-Star break, or do you think the Bulls are really going to take their time and bringing him back and wait till even later, till after All-Star break, to really consider bringing him on board?
No, I think the window. I mean, this is just informed speculation. I'll just say two things. For sure, he's assuming there's no setback in the rehab process, he's definitely going to try to play this season. So there's that. So right. That's the most important point. The mindset is he obviously wants to play this season. He's wanted to play throughout. I mean, he's not happy about this either. And then I would probably, just my own thought processes, I'm thinking around the new year is a good target date. Maybe a window opens in December if things are going better. We'll get an official update from the team, when that 4 to 6 week evaluation period ends. But I don't even think then they'll put a specific date or timeline on him. I think they'll talk in more general terms, just because they were kind of burned by the last one, where they said 6 to 8 week return to play, and then obviously he never returned to play. So it's been a frustrating and bedeviling process for all parties involved. But the most emphatic point I can make is that Lonzo plans to try to play this season. So when that is, we got to see how the health situation plays out. But he plans to try to play this season for sure.
Okay. Well, with all that being said, then, I got to ask you this. Where do you see the Bulls finishing this season?
Yeah, I'm terrible at predictions. Although I actually got last year pretty close. I'm really bad at predictions. Really, really bad at predictions. I don't have this totally thought out yet. I'm gonna be writing this between now and the regular season opener, so this number might change. But as we're sitting here taping this, I've got them at 44-38 and 7th place in the East. How's that?
That's actually not far off from what I was thinking.
All right.
Not far off. I was thinking maybe like that 8 seed range. Because the East got so much better, and with the Bulls, I think Lonzo is a big factor into how the Bulls move forward with the team and everything. So
yeah, for sure. I would say this though: the East got better on paper. I mean, everyone's like anointing Cleveland and Atlanta, and I mean, yes, they upgraded on paper, but you got to see how that stuff plays out on the court. I mean, it's that. What I will say is, I'm in agreement with you that the East got, the conference is going to be very tough. So you're not going to have many off nights where you can just like coast and get a victory. You're going to have to play hard against even teams like New York and stuff. I mean, they got better on paper too. So that part is for sure. Look, I'm not going to be surprised if they finish anywhere between 5th and 10th. I'm really not. I mean, if they finish 5th, I'll be like, all right, I can see that. If they finish 10th, I'll be like, yeah, I can see that. But that's why I kind of got them right around the middle, around 7th for right now.
Well, hey, it's a nice sweet spot. We're cool with that. But Casey Johnson, where can everybody follow your work and everything that you're doing?
I am at NBCSportsChicago.com, and my colleague Rob Schaefer, who does extremely awesome work, kind of carries us actually. His work can be found there as well. And then tune into the broadcast. I make occasional appearances alongside the stars, Adam Amin and Stacey King. And we have a lot of fun over at our shop, and we're thankful that we get to be the exclusive broadcast home of the Chicago Bulls. So check us out, NBC Sports Chicago.
There you have it, folks.
Oh, and there's that Twitter thing too, but I don't even know what my handle is. I don't know. My kids my kids run my Twitter account. They they changed my avatar. I got nothing. I don't even know how Twitter works. I just know how to send out a tweet.
Oh, I love it, Casey. Well, thank you for coming on our show. We really appreciate it. We got to have you come back more often because, this is Chicago. We got to talk Bulls. We got to have the best of the best on here. So we love for you to come back on and talk Bulls with us. And we appreciate you taking the time to even, within your busy schedule to give us this Bulls insight as we get ready and prepare for the upcoming season.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Josh. And I'll see you around the Advocate United Centers. Take it easy.
Most definitely. You too.
Special thanks to Casey Johnson once again for coming through on the first edition of Open Run to talk shop on all things Bulls with my man Josh Hicks here. I'm going to move on to the NBA award predictions. First off, starting with the Rookie of the Year award, which was taken home by Scotty Barnes from the Toronto Raptors last season. Josh, who's your pick to win this award, man? This is an award that I think is going to be very competitive, similar to how it was last year with Scotty and Evan Mobley. The Cavaliers battered it out. Who's your pick to take it home this year in 2022, 2023?
I'm going with Carmelo 2.0. Carmelo Anthony 2.0. Paolo Banchero. Look, just because of the fact that it gives, a Carmelo Anthony championship Syracuse vibes when he transitioned from Syracuse to his first season in the NBA. I think he has a chance, especially being with a young Orlando Magic team that has some talent. They got some good talent that's surrounding them as a core foundation around there. And with him being one of the main franchise players there, he's going to have the opportunity to expand on his game in ways that other rookies may not be able to on the situation. That I think him working over there with the head coach there, he'll have a monster season and a lot of in a lot of ways remind people I am meant to be this number one pick, because there was controversy of figuring out who was the number one pick going to be when that draft came along between him, Jabari Smith, and Chet Holmgren. So I think this year he's gonna have a hell of a year, to a point where he's gonna prove I was meant to be the number one draft pick and the one that's supposed to get this deal with Jordan. So I think he's gonna take it. That's my pick.
This is one I struggle with, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of conflicted before, we came in and record this podcast. This could go either way. I could see Jabari Smith trying to make a case for it, because defensively he can bring some things to the table, and his ability to make plays off the ball in Houston could be a big benefit to guys like Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., who are gonna seek to make it, happen with the Rock and create things as playmakers. But I agree with you, Josh. I'm gonna have to go with Paolo Banchero for a few of the reasons that you listed, and the main one being because Jamal Mosley is gonna put him in position to succeed multiple times with the ball in his hand. Just looking at the way that they were using him in the preseason on and off the ball, I could see him being a primary ball handler at times in the offense, igniting things off the pick and roll. He has a high IQ. He's a 3-level scorer. If he did end up winning, it would kind of do Carmelo some justice when you consider the fact that he didn't win his rookie season after, winning all the Rookie of the Month awards in the Western Conference and losing to LeBron James, who had a 25-5 year, 03-04. But I do think he's going to end up winning. But it's some sleepers for this award that I think people need to keep their eyes on. And I named 2 of them. I already named one of Jabari Smith Jr. The first one would be Benedict Mathurin. The way he played with Indiana, that's a guy, man, who, can make things happen off the pick and roll as well, slash and attack the rim. Kind of remind me of Jaylen Brown a little bit. The numbers he was putting up towards the back end of the preseason was something to behold. And I think Indiana has a special player on their hands with him. And the other guy is Keegan Murray from Sacramento, out of Iowa. A guy who is going to provide Sacramento with some length on the wing, a guy that can shoot, stretch the floor, play inside, outside. I really like his game deal. And I think he's going to help the Kings make some noise in the West as they seek to, erase the longest playoff drought in North American sports history right now. So I think those are names that people need to look out for. But I do agree with you, Josh. I would go with Paolo Banchero to take home their Rookie of the Year award, man. I just think he has too much weapons around him, as you said, from Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony and those guys and the rest. And I think he's going to make some noise where the numbers are really going to be in his favor, because he's going to have a high usage rate. That's for sure. But I want to move on to the 6-man award. This goes to the top off the bench. The guy that may not always get all the praise, but the guy without him, he may not be able to win or be in contention for a championship. Last year, Tyler Hero won the award. He became the first player in Miami Heat history to win that award. This year, I'm going with Jordan Poole of the Golden State Warriors. And the reason why is because I think after that Javonte Green incident, he's going to be more than motivated, to prove that he was worthy of that contract that he just recently signed off on an extension with Golden State not too long ago. And he's one of the few guys in the league who, if you put him on most teams, he can easily start. He's going to give you close to 20 a night when he really has it going. And he's capable of dishing out 5 or 6 assists a game as well. I really like his game. He showed a lot of growth in the playoffs, and I think he's going to expand upon that. Josh, who would be your pick for this year's award for 6-man?
Man, you stole my pick. It was a close one, though. It was a close one. Because a part of me, I believe in Jordan Poole, well-deserving of the contract. That's a bad dude. And like you said, I believe that now that he got his max money, he got his bag, he secured it, he's going to have his pool so he can have his pool parties, all he wants. Now that he got that in place, and, with the Draymond Green incident, I do think that he's going to have that extra motivation that's going to bring him down back to his humbleness level. That's going to make him want to grind and go and show and make another message. But my dark horse, I'm going to go with D'Angelo Russell of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Just because D'Angelo Russell, the Timberwolves were busy this offseason. They brought in Rudy Gobert. They brought in Kyle Anderson. They brought in some boys that can really fill out the disadvantages that they had last season. And with D'Angelo Russell being the sixth man coming off that bench, I think him playing at point guard, pairing him with Rudy Gobert in a pick and roll situation is ideal for him. And we know what D'Angelo Russell can do when the ball's in his hands. And we know what he can do from a point guard perspective, leading Brooklyn Nets to the playoffs before Kevin Durant and Kyrie showed up. So I think he can have a monster year this year, especially being a strong second six-man player where he can play point guard for the second unit, dominate within that second unit, but at the same time, maybe down the line, if he's playing, he might be playing with Anthony Edwards. He might be playing with Karl Anthony Towns. And you got Rudy Gobert as your center in crunch time when it comes to sealing the deal.
So you think
saying
is your dark horse, you got D'Angelo Russell is the winner for the six-man award? Because if I'm not mistaken, he's their starting one.
No, he's not their starter.
Who started for Minnesota this year?
Shoot, who's their point guard this year? That's a good question.
Because I mean, Pat Bev's out,
right?
And I'm currently pulling up their depth chart right now. I mean, because last time I checked, last year he was starting. Now I know that they had him in the midst of trade rumors. Yeah, because he's starting because you got Jordan McLaughlin is their second unit point guard, and then Austin Rivers is the backup.
Oh, you know what? I think there was a point in time last season though where he was coming off as the sixth man.
It's some spurts because
right.
was taking turns. It was a few moments where he did, but mostly like towards the end of the year, they was really running them together. Right.
Yeah, you're right about that. So even if it is D'Angelo Russell starting this year, hell, Austin Rivers can make a case too. I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna get it, but Austin Rivers can make a case too, considering what the additional depth that was brought to the table. You never know. Minnesota has a chance to be a top 3 team, literally a top 3 seeded team in the Western Conference. They have a chance, and if they do that well, I don't see anyone else I don't see any of this bench Western. You can say, maybe can run away with that position outside of a Jordan Poole. That might be your next bet.
I mean, it's some guys for six-man like Jordan Clarkson, even though he's still in Utah. You never know what could happen this season. I think he'd definitely be in the running. I think Tyler Herro will be in the running again as well as the reigning six-man award winner. That's always an award that, could go either way. You never know. You can have certain guys that emerge for the award, such as young players. Maybe even Patrick Williams, if he thrives in the six-man role with the Bulls, you never know. But moving forward, going on, with most improved player, this is an award that was won by Ja Morant last year, the Memphis Grizzlies. Could have easily been taken by his fellow backcourt mate, Desmond Bane. Who is your pick this year to take home the most improved player award in 22-23?
I struggle with this one. And to be honest with you, I don't know. I really can't tell you. Because I have to see who's going to take that next leap. I got to see who's going to take that next leap, that huge next step. And quite frankly, don't know who it is. Maybe like a Tyrese Maxey, or maybe like a Tyrese Maxey and Philly type of deal.
Yeah, I thought about Tyrese Maxey. I thought about Tyrese Maxey prior to recording because I know based off what I saw in the preseason, he's improved immensely. He seems way more confident shooting the basketball, making plays off the bounce. I think him and James Harden together, having a full offseason to work together under their belt is going to pay significant dividends for Philadelphia. I'm very high on Philadelphia, so I can see why you would say Tyrese Maxey. But that's an award that you never know how the voters going to vote on it. Last year, Ja Morant, I think everybody in the world expected him to show up and show out the way he did, but I don't think that if you'd have said he was going to win most improved player, we would have thought that. And it all depends on how they – I think 9 times out of 10 as of late, the player that has come out of nowhere and become an all-star is the player who typically gets this award. Before Ja Morant got it, it was Julius Randle when he had his all-star season in New York. I think this year it's going to go to a player in Minnesota. And I think that guy's going to be Anthony Edwards. I really expect him to submit himself as a top 5 shooting guard in the league, if not top shooting guard in the league. Every year he seems to get better. He's a solid two-way player. He's gonna make it happen off the dribble, on the, off ball, like whatever. Like he can score from anywhere on the floor to me, and he's only getting better. And
Right.
I think, to me, if you really think about it, like, everybody talk about Rudy Gobert, and that is the big offseason acquisition. But Minnesota's gonna go as far as Anthony Edwards takes, even with Cat intact and Rudy Gobert, the Twin Towers in the middle. I'm very high on Anthony Edwards, man. I think this is the year he finally cracked through. He gonna put up some big time numbers.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, Ant-Man has arrived. He showed us that last season, especially come playoff time.
Yeah.
He's not afraid of the moments. He's helped extend that series a lot, to where even though it could have been done in 5, he extended to maybe 6 or 7 games when they played. I want to say it was 6 games at least. And at the end of the day, he is their franchise. He's their future, building around what that future looks like. And I think just the addition of, I talked about how D'Angelo Russell can have a big year because of Rudy Gobert. Anthony Edwards going to have even a bigger year with Rudy Gobert there from an offensive perspective. Rudy will cover the defensive side of defensive lapses, but Anthony Edwards is going to be free as heck off them pick and rolls because Rudy Gobert is such a great screener. And when you have that much screen movement, knowing that Rudy Gobert doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to do anything offensively, it's open season for him. It's open season for him. So I expect Anthony Edwards to take a leap as well. I just don't know if, like you said, the voters will have go this route like they did with Ja, where we knew Ja was going to take that next level, but is it really most improved? You know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because we all expected Ja to be like the all-star kind of player that is to take that next level with Memphis. That was the given. We kind of have that same expectation when he's doing in Minnesota. So I don't know if that is something that, you factor into choosing that award. So I'm not against your pick. But like you said before, it's a matter of how the voters roll with this thing. If they're going to pick a true most improved player or a player that is a star but has improved, even though we had high expectations for him to improve anyways.
Right. I mean, I just think about how they've been voting lately, with Ja winning last year. And then a couple years ago, they gave it to Brandon Ingram following the 2019-2020 season after he earned his first All-Star appearance with New Orleans over Luka Doncic, a guy who was in his second season at the time, and everybody expected to top what he did his rookie year, Javonte Graham, who in my opinion was more deserving of it that season when he was in Charlotte with the increases in his points per game total and just across the board his impact on winning under Steve Clifford at the time in Charlotte. So I like that's a funny award, most improved player award. It could go to so many guys. I could see a guy like DeAndre Hunter being a sleeper, but will they vote for him? That remains to be seen. It's typically the all-star who they vote for, even though we all expect that guy that's named the all-star to make those improvements and go far beyond, what someone may have thought a couple seasons ago prior, whatever, on that player. But moving on, want to talk about the coach of the year. This was an award last season that was won by Monty Williams, who became the first Phoenix Suns head coach to win the award since Mike D'Antoni during the 2004-2005 season. Williams led the Suns to a franchise best 64 wins a season ago. This is an award that, as you know, can go to any coach as well, depending on how the voters, go about doing business. You can either go to a coach that exceeds expectations or the coach that finishes with the best record. I mean, what's your take on who wins coach of the year?
Clipper Nation, baby. Salute.
Wow.
Going with Ty Lue. The Clippers are loaded this year. They have a real chance to click and really take things to the next level. Paul George re-emerged as the all-star that he is when he went against Phoenix Suns over the past couple of years. And this year you're going to have a healthy Kawhi Leonard. So if he comes back to the Kawhi that we know he can be, that's dangerous for the league. And not to mention, your third best option is John Wall. John Wall may not be the John Wall of old, but he's still got game and he's explosive. And as you can see, the clips that is shown on the internet, dude's ready to ball. It's not like he missed much of a step. So the Clippers also have the depth to go along with the star power, which makes that team so scary. But what does Ty Lue do best? He knows what it's like to coach the stars. He coached LeBron James to his first championship in Cleveland, along with Kyrie and others. So if anyone can figure that situation out and have them playing at an elite level, it's Ty Lue. And I expect at the end of the day, he's gonna get that award at the end of the season, whether no matter how deep they go. I expect Ty Lue to get the award.
You must have been looking at my picks, man. We've been spot on for the most part. We 3 out of 4 in agreement for most of these picks. I'm going with Ty Lue as well. I don't see how you could go against them. I think from top to bottom, the Clippers are the most loaded team in the Western Conference. Pick your poison: guard, forward spot, the bigs. I think he's one of the best in the league when it comes to making in-game adjustments, night in, night out, be it in the playoffs or be it throughout the course of an 82-game season. He's shown that. I think this was a guy who, didn't get enough credit for what he did with that LeBron-led Cavaliers squad, not just in 2016, but throughout the 3 years that he took over, and even that year when he won the championship, taking over in the middle of the year for Dave Black, who, got axed as the head coach at Cleveland during LeBron's second year, in his second tenure back with Cleveland. I think now that they're going to be forced to give him his respect that just due for what he's able to do with this group. I think he has a group of unselfish guys. Just listening to what Reggie Jackson was talking about, like with the press out in LA, I don't care if I start or not. I just want to do what my best is to contribute to this team to the best of my ability. I think John Wall has been all in. I think this is a guy who's hell-bent on trying to win a championship and make things happen, whether he's coming off the bench to do it or whether he's starting. He's a guy that hasn't played in a year, so he's going to be, hungry. Kawhi coming back off an injury. Paul George looked like a top 10 talent, last year prior to falling off with the injury and missing an extended period of time. He was really keeping that team afloat and went in the thick of the Western Conference playoff picture. And I really believe that had it not been for him getting hurt, that, they probably make it as a play-in team. Losing him that game when they went up against New Orleans, man, that was a big blow. And I'm very high on the Clippers this year with the additions that they made. Norm Powell, Robert Covington last year at the trade deadline. To be able to get that from Portland and to be able to get those guys all together fully healthy in the same building for training camp, I can only imagine what the practices were like and the scrimmages were like, because this is a Clippers team that I expect to be a top 3 unit out in the Western Conference. And I definitely see Tyronn Lue finally getting his just due for all and winning the Coach of the Year award for sure.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. It's scary hours in Clipperland. They may be ready to shave some heads now. So we'll see how this thing goes. We'll see how it goes, especially in the struggles that they got in Lakeland.
Yep. And moving on, the Defensive Player of the Year. Last year, Marcus Smart became the first guard since Gary Payton back in 95-96 to take home that award. This is an award, it's a lot of guys that's going to be in the running for it. Bam Adebayo. Rudy Gobert is always in the running for it. Marcus Smart might be in the run for it again. His teammate, Rob Williams, might be in the running for it. It's a lot of guys that can win this award. Who would you pick to win this award? I myself, personally, I'm going with Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat. I truly believe that this is going to be the year he finally gets his credit from the voters. Easily could have took it home last year.
Most definitely. That's a great pick. Definitely wouldn't count that out, especially with the way Miami plays defensively as a unit. Like he's one of the main anchors on that front line. Surprised at that at all. But I'm gonna stick to more of the guardish range. And I'm gonna go pick Mikal Bridges because I think he got snubbed last year. As much as Marcus Smart was great with his defense, Mikal Bridges was on a team that was the best record in the NBA, doing what he did on both ends of the floor. And he was a defensive mastermind when it came to that perimeter defense in the backcourt with Devin Booker and Chris Paul. I think Mikal Bridges got a little snubbed on there, and I can see him going on revenge tour, trying to make sure that he gets his name for the year. So I'm going with him.
I like that pick. That was definitely another guy that easily could have been defensive player of the year. We know, how much ground he covers with his size and length. Probably outside of Bam, I would say those are the top two individual defenders in the league right now, based off of the last couple of years, off their body of work, how they check guys. They always looking for that top matchup too, which is what I respect about them the most. But we got to get to the biggest award of them all among the individual awards, Most Valuable Player Award. Nikola Jokic took it home last year on behalf of the Denver Nuggets, winning back-to-back, his second straight MVP award. Will it the third time, Josh?
If they couldn't give Giannis 3, I know they ain't gonna give Jokic 3. So I'm good. I doubt that happens. But my MVP is gonna be a hot take, running off SportsCenter. Like, that's how hot the thing is gonna be. I'm going with Zion Williamson if he stays healthy. And the reason why is because the Pelicans are good with CJ McCollum. They got that veteran leadership, that veteran scorer. We know what Brandon Ingram does when he brings to the table, but they only go as far as Zion can go. If you got a healthy Zion Williamson, whom in preseason, by the way, looked crazy good, fit in shape, that quick first step was always there, it's still there, and and it seems like he has improved even on his offensive shooting ability, because he was shooting threes. So if you telling me you get that much of an impact, along with the efficiency that he brings, for 60-plus games with the Pelicans, if you had that last season with CJ McCollum coming in, Pelicans weren't going to be a playing team. They probably would have hit that. They would have hit that, at least that 6th seed, and skipped the playing tournament. You bring Zion in there now, along with everybody else. If he can stay healthy, you're talking the Pelicans 14. In the West, right around that 4th seed. So I think if Zion Williamson can stay healthy, the Pelicans increase their chances of going higher and deeper in the playoffs. If they hit that top 5 seed, you got to put his name in the MVP category, and that's the one I'm going with.
So you saying right here, right now, that you believe that for the first time in 5 years, we will see an American-born player take home the Most Valuable Player award in the NBA. This has not happened since 2017-18 when James Harden did it with the Houston Rockets. I just want to make sure we clear.
Oh, I'm clear. Right. Okay. To the bank.
I like that pick, and if I was a gambling man, I probably would take it, because I know the odds are against him. But if he were to win, that would be it would net you a significant payout. I tell you that much. But my MVP, I'm gonna go in a different direction. I'm gonna go with a guy who Jokic beat for his back-to-back MVP awards, and that's Joel Embiid. To me, I think Joel Embiid is gonna be on a mission. Last year, he led the league in scoring. Wasn't good enough to even make it to the All-NBA first team because of the way that the vote was set up with positions and whatnot. And as a result, he lost that spot to Jason Tatum. I think everybody in America knows with the year that Joel Embiid had, that regardless of position, he should have been All-NBA first team last season. I think James Harden is going to do everything in his power to make sure that he's feeding the big fella left and right. And I would not be shocked if he led the league in scoring for the 2nd year in a row. And I also would not be surprised if this is the year where he finally breaks through because of the team's success that Philadelphia will have under Doc Rivers. I believe that Tyrese Maxey will have a big year. I believe that Tobias Harris will find his footing as the 4th option and get comfortable being a off-the-ball threat as opposed to having the ball in his hands like he did often prior to the Harden trade. I really like what this group has done. I think PJ Tucker gives them a veteran presence on the wing, a guy that's not afraid to check anyone, and an added, girth and toughness inside, even though he's undersized. When you playing with that big fella, he can cover a lot of ground for you. And he's a guy that I wouldn't even be surprised in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, man. I truly believe that Joel Embiid is going to be hell-bent on having a big-time year. And he's even publicly admitted it. Like, he knows that it's a political process to win an MVP award, but he wants it. And I think those guys in that Sixers locker room are going to want it for him. And I think this is the year where he finally cracks through in a way similar to how Harden did after a couple runner-up finishes, himself in his prime. I think he finally cracks through and gives Philadelphia their first MVP since Allen Iverson.
I can see that. I mean, James Harden has some stories to tell, considering that he got snubbed supposedly on a couple of his MVP runs before he finally broke through and got his. So no help playing. All this is over. Let's get the MVP.
Yeah, but carrying forward on to the next topic, this opening week, we got a lot of big time games coming up. Starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers traveling out to Boston on the road, to face the Celtics this coming Tuesday night. We also got the Warriors unveiling their banner, at the crib at the Chase Center out in San Fran against the LA Lakers. What games are you really looking forward to watching on the opening week docket in week one of the NBA season?
Well, I think for me, obviously outside of any of the Bulls games, because the Bulls not only just play Miami, but they also play Cleveland as their first home game that Saturday. So that's going to be a very good game that I'm going to definitely pay attention to. But I think for me, it's really going to be the Golden State and Lakers game. And the reason why for me, I want to see what Anthony Davis is going to do. He has been very open and public as of recent, saying that he wants to spoil their night. And Anthony Davis, you got some work to do because you barely played last season. You're always hurt, but you're a force when you are able to play. And the fact that this year he has some different horses running with him, not just with LeBron James, but at the same time, if Russ is healthy, a better Russ, but you got Lonnie Walker running with you. You got your Chicago native brother Kendrick Nunn running with you. You got some different players that go around. And, LeBron is still going to be LeBron, but he has admitted we go as far as Anthony Davis is willing to take us. So guess what, brother? It's time to shine. It's time to put your money where your mouth is. And you the face of this franchise and the future of this franchise. It's time to live up to those expectations. And I hope that ring ceremony burns him. I hope he gets so upset knowing that 2 years ago he was in the same spot when he got his ring, and now you're about to go into another team that got the rings that you're trying to reach. I want him to have a strong statement game against the Warriors, and I want to see and then we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, Anthony Davis is a guy who I think a lot of people are expecting a lot out of, and rightfully so. This is a guy when healthy, as we all know, he can be a top 5 player in this league, and not only a top 5 player, but an MVP candidate. A guy that I think most of us would have all thought by now at this point in his career would have had an MVP, especially after that championship run that he went on. And I think, some people do have a right to wonder, has he gotten, a little bit satisfied with the success that he's accumulated in his career, having won at every level, before the age of 30? He's the only player, I think, in the history of basketball to win a FIBA World Cup, an Olympic gold medal, a national championship, and on top of that, an NBA championship. So this is definitely a big time year for him, and a big time year for the Lakers, who I think is going to be a must-watch all season long. But the game that I'm really going to be focused on is not a game that is going to be on national TV, and I wish it was on NBA TV, but I have league pass to check it out, is the Clippers and the Kings. And I tell you why, because in the state of California, as you know, we always talk about the Clippers. We always talk about the Lakers. We always talk about the Warriors. But we got this Kings team, man, that, got the Aaron Fox in the mix.
Yeah.
The Montes Sabonis, who they acquired last year at the trade deadline in his first full season with the Sacramento Kings. You got the young rookie Keegan Murray, there. And they have built a solid core group there with a veteran head coach coming into the mix, and Mike Brown, who this will be his first year with the Kings. And they're going to be seeking to make the playoffs and send a message against a Clippers team that has championship aspirations. Even though, the health of Keegan Murray is up right now because he's in health and safety protocol, and no one knows whether or not he'll be cleared to even go for opening night. If he's able to get cleared in time for that matchup, that's going to be a big-time matchup. And while it may not be the ultimate battle of California, I think that game is going to show us just how tough that Pacific division is going to be, because you have the Clippers, you have the Kings, you have the Suns, you have the Warriors, and you have the Lakers. That's 5 teams, man. And it's only 8 playoff spots. Somebody ain't gonna make it. And these are the teams that the Kings are gonna have to beat and try and find a way to overcome in an effort to break the longest playoff drought, not just in the current confines of the NBA, but in North American sports history right now, as I just alluded to earlier in the show. So that's the game that I have to look forward to the most, followed, of course, by the big-time games such as Nuggets and Warriors and Bucks and Sixers, which will be on the docket on Friday as well as Thursday on the national schedule. But with that said, I want to thank everyone who tuned in to the first ever episode of WARR Media's Open Run. It's always a pleasure to talk basketball with you, Josh. You can always follow us at WARR Media on all platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9. You can follow us individually at What Gabe Said, myself on Twitter. You can follow Josh Hicks at Josh M. Hicks Media. Hey, man, what you got coming up, you know, for us to look forward to this season with the Bulls? I know you're doing big things with the bigs. I know you're going to be doing big things with us as well on Open Run. Anything you got to plug?
Oh man, just keep looking at just keep searching for the content coming out on Twitter, man. The bigs, we got some good big content plans coming up, and we're looking forward to it. Pretty much covering the season and bringing all the news that we can, not just from the NBA, not just from the Bulls perspective, but the NBA as well. So just be on the lookout for that.
For sure. Thanks once again for checking us out. So long, everybody. We out.